Hello, first grade. Welcome to week 3 of Friday video lessons. Today is Friday, March 8th. Today we are learning to write about how to make a clay animal. Our activity, we are going to start with silly versus sensible for today. And then our next activity will be adventures in writing. And then today you will need to bring with you a pencil and paper. So if you don't already have that, go ahead and pause the video real quick and grab that, and see you in a moment. All right, welcome back, guys. Hopefully you were able to acquire a pencil and paper. We will be writing later today. We'll be doing our step-by-step writing about how to make a clay animal. But first, we're going to start with silly versus sensible. Remember, this is the game where I say a sentence. You think really hard about what the sentence is saying, what it means. If the sentence sounds a little bit silly, like that doesn't sound right, that sounds kind of funny, you're going to wiggle your fingers. If it sounds like there's nothing wrong with that sentence, it makes sense, it's fine, you're just going to hold your hands up like this. All right, let's start with the first one. The first one, people in the Arctic never wear jackets because the weather is warm all year. The sentence again. People in the Arctic never wear jackets because it is warm there all year. Is that silly or sensible? This is silly. Let's think about what this means. The Arctic, we learned from our lesson a couple weeks ago that the Arctic is very cold. In places where it's very cold, people wear jackets. It's not warm at all in the Arctic any time of year. Even in the summer, it's still cold there. Let's go to sentence number 2. Sentence number 2 is, my sister rushed home. That's why it took her 2 hours instead of 10 minutes. Let's listen again. My sister rushed home. That's why it took her 2 hours to get here instead of 10 minutes. Is that silly or sensible? This one is silly again. This is another silly sentence. My sister rushed home. Remember, when we rush, that means we're going very, very, very fast. It took her 2 hours to get home instead of the 10 minutes it normally takes. If it took her 2 hours, do you think sister was rushing? I don't think so either. Let's move on to sentence number 3. We use pottery to put food and drinks in when we have a meal. We use pottery to put food and drinks in when we have a meal. Is this silly or sensible? This one is sensible. Let's think about what pottery is. Pottery is different things like bowls or cups or different shapes, plates made out of a earth substance called clay. We know that they bake the clay in the oven and it makes it hard like glass. Most of our plates and dishes are in fact made out of clay. So when something like that's made out of clay, we call it pottery. So this sentence makes sense. Let's move on to the next one. It was so dark at night that I could see where I was going even though I didn't have a flashlight. Let's hear it again. It was so dark at night that I could see where I was going even without a flashlight. Is that silly or sensible? This is a silly sentence. This does not make sense. If it is so dark at night, would you be able to see without a flashlight? Probably not. You would need a flashlight to see. So this sentence is silly. Number 5, we made clay animals and ate them for breakfast the next morning. We made clay animals and then we ate them for breakfast the next morning. Is this silly or sensible? This is a silly sentence. We know what clay animals are. We learned about that in our star story this week. Clay is like a muddy, sticky dirt that you can make into different shapes. And then when you put it in the oven, it hardens like a rock. You can't eat it when it's mushy and you can't eat it when it's a rock. I mean, you probably could, but I'm not recommending it. It's probably not safe. It'll make you very sick. Do not eat clay. It is not edible. It will make you sick. That's a silly sentence. We don't eat clay for breakfast. Number 6, your next sentence is, Isaac could tell that there were people in the cabin because smoke was coming out of the chimney. Adam could tell that there were people in the cabin because there was smoke coming out of the chimney. Is that silly or sensible? This is sensible. Let's think about what a chimney is. A chimney is is on the top of our roof. It is usually a box shape, and the reason why it's up there is to let smoke come out from the bottom of our house, like from either when our heat is running in the winter or if we have a fireplace. That's where all the heat and smoke rises out of. If somebody is home and using their fireplace, you'll see smoke coming out of their chimney. If they are not home and they are not using their fireplace, well, there's no smoke to come out. So if you see smoke coming out of a chimney, that's a pretty good sign that someone is either home or lives in the house currently. So this makes sense. Let's go to the next sentence. Number 7. People in warm countries live in igloos. People in warm countries live in igloos. Is this silly or sensible? This is silly. Igloos, we know an igloo is a little round house that you can make using snow or ice. And we know that people in the Arctic live in igloos, not people that live in warm places. There's no snow or ice in warm places, so there can't be any igloos there. That is a silly sentence. Our next one, logs are normally shaped like triangles. Logs are normally shaped like triangles. Is that silly or sensible? What is log? This is a silly sentence. We know what a log shape is. We learned about that when we were learning about how to make clay animals. A log is like a long, skinny shape, kind of like a pop can. If you were to stretch it out, it's round and then flat on the sides. That doesn't sound like a triangle to me. It's actually a cylinder. You'll be learning more about shapes with Miss Anaya later on that. So that's a silly sentence. Logs are cylinder shaped, not triangle shaped. Number 9, when you waste water, you save it so you can use it later. When we waste water, we save it so we can use it later. Is that silly or sensible? This is a silly sentence. The word waste means to get rid of something, not to save something. So if you're wasting water, you're not saving it to use it later. That means it's gone forever if you've wasted it. So that's a silly sentence. Our last silly or sensible sentence today, number 10. Maya decorated her cup with blue and green zigzags. Maya decorated her cup with blue and green zigzags. Is that silly or sensible? This is a sensible sentence. When I think of the word zigzags, we learn that that's a pattern that goes up and down and back and forth just like this. If she is decorating a cup, that makes me think that she's making one, kind of like Quinto made a mask. It makes me think that she's making a cup and she is putting designs on it to decorate it. So it makes sense that she would use a pattern like a zigzag. This one makes sense to me. This is a sensible sentence. Thank you guys for playing silly or sensible with me. We're going to move into the last and final part today of our lesson. We're going to do adventures in writing for the lesson 40. So in the book, Crafting Fun for a Rainy Day, we read about how to make art projects with things like clay. We learned about things that we can make at home. We learned about paper plate masks. So we learned about different crafts that we can make with the stuff that we have at our house. Today, you guys are going to write about how to make your own clay animal. We're writing a how-to. So we're explaining to somebody else how to make a certain shape out of clay. So we're probably going to be using some sequencing words like first, next, then, next, last. First and last are kind of like the buns on our hamburger, and then all the thens and nexts is like the meat and the cheese and all the toppings. So we could think of our paragraphs kind of like as a big giant cheeseburger. So right now we're going to think of an animal that we can make out of clay. We're going to think of an animal that we can make together out of clay. I'm going to use the example of a duck. For your homework later today, I want you guys to pick a different animal, but to practice, we're gonna work together right now just to write these sentences about how to make a duck out of clay. This one's kind of hard to see. Sorry about the light. I have a few words that are star and background words from this week up here. I figured that they would be helpful for us when writing today. So we'll leave those up there. For my first sentence, I know I want to make a clay duck. So how can we turn that into a complete sentence? Let's think. What should we say? We should say, let's make a clay duck. We can all start our sentences that way. You can start yours later with whatever animal you're going to write, or you can think of something completely different. So let's. Let's make I know that. Clay is right here. I'm going to copy it. Let's make a clay duck. Duck. I can't remember if it's C, K, or C and K, so I'm just going to put a line here. Let's make a clay duck. That's my first sentence. I'm telling everybody what it is that I'm going to be writing about. Let's make a clay duck. If I'm going to be teaching them how to do this, I need to tell them what to do first. What's going to be the first step? Let's think back to our star story. What is one of the first steps when making a clay animal that you want to think about? I remember they talked about, think about the shapes of your animal. So when I see a duck in my head, I'm trying to think of what shapes I see. I see maybe a round part for his body, a small oval for his neck, maybe a circle for his head, and then kind of like a triangle for his beak almost. So I'm starting to think of some shapes that I see in my head when I think about the shape of a duck. What should we say about the first thing? Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to get our clay ready. So we have to roll our clay into a large ball for his body. So let's start with the body. First, roll the clay in a large ball. First, roll the clay in a large ball. So 8, first, roll the clay in a large ball. Okay, so first, that's like girl in a whirl. First, comma. We do a comma after those first, next, last. First, roll. Roll. I'm not sure if that's right. It doesn't look right to me, so I'm just going to put a little question mark with a circle around it so that my teacher knows that I'm still thinking about that word. That is a writing editing strategy. Make sure you're doing those. First, roll the clay. I know that word. T-H-E. I'm going to copy clay again. A. First, roll the clay in a large ball. In is in. I know the word a. Large. J. Uh-oh. We've learned different sounds for j. I don't think it's a J, though. It's either G-E or D-G-E. So in a large. I'll put a space here, but I'll put a question mark because I don't know if a D goes here or not. I'm not sure if it's D-G-E or G-E. So first, roll the clay in a large ball. I actually know this word. I remember reading it a lot of times, so I know this word. I'm going to put a memory cloud around it. First, roll the clay in a large ball. That sentence is done. What do we need to do next to make a clay animal? When we're making a clay animal that's a duck, we have the large ball for his body. Is there anything we could add, or if there's any details we could add to our sentence to make it more interesting? I could talk about how maybe we want to add color. And maybe I think I think that they're yellow. Maybe we could say first roll the yellow clay into a large ball. So I could even go back and I can just put like little stars of where maybe I want to add details later when I come back and edit. First, roll the yellow clay in a large ball. I could talk about what color you should use. So next, what else we could say? Next, we're writing our next sentence. Next, next, comma, don't forget your commas. Next, what's the next step? Ooh, maybe next, we need to make 2 log shapes for the legs. And when I think of ducks, they don't have very big legs. They have short legs, and they have short little skinny legs. So we could say next, make 2 small logs for the legs. Make 2 small logs for the legs. 7 words. Make 2 small logs for the legs. Next, make two. I don't know how to spell this word. I remember Miss Sedlmeyer told me that's different than like I'm going to the store. Like it's spelled different, but I can't remember. So I'm gonna put this. Sometimes that's all we know how to spell, but I'm also going to put this. I know it's wrong. I know that that's not how you spell the word to, but this shows me that I'm thinking about coming back and editing it. Remember your editing checklist. So next, make 2 small make 2 small logs. Background word, I'm going to copy it. Next, make 2 small logs for the legs. 4. And then or, like corn for the horse. For the. I know the word the. It's in my brain. I don't need to think about it, so it gets a thought bubble. Make 2 small logs for the legs. End of my sentence. I would write normally now another sentence. Then you can do this. Next, do that. There's a lot of steps to write a duck. All we have right now is a ball with 2 legs. That's not much of a duck. He needs a neck. What shape would be good for the neck? Let's see. Our necks even are small and kind of square, but they're also round. So maybe just like a small, flat cylinder shape, log shape. For the ducks have round heads, but then their beaks are pointy. So maybe for the duck's head, roll a small yellow ball. And then for the beak, make an orange triangle. For his feet, I know ducks have very webbed out feet. They almost kind of look like fancy little triangles or umbrellas. You could say make 2 small orange umbrella shapes, flat umbrellas for his feet. There's lots more steps. If I were to just give this to somebody and say, this is how you make a duck, they would read it and they would look at me like I was crazy because this does not explain very many steps, does it? For your homework tonight, you guys are going to write as many steps as you can. How to teach somebody how to make a clay animal. Use as many details and as many steps as you can. After you're done, read it back to yourself. If you followed those steps exactly, would you get your animal? If not, is there anywhere that you can go back and add more steps? Maybe more details? I'll post your assignment. I'll post our example work that we did today. You're going to pick a different animal other than a duck. There's many to pick from. I will also post your writing strategies, your writing checklist, and also your editing checklist so that you have that as guidance. That will be due tonight before midnight. I'll be looking for strategies. I'll be looking for that stretching and spelling. It'll be due tonight before midnight. That's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye, guys.